In today's video, we're talking about love. More specifically, God's love. And it needs to be differentiated between the other types of love that are out there. Now, in the English language, the term love, it covers everything. But when we go back to the Greek, we see there's a variety of loves out there. And we know this intuitively. In the 60s, there was a band that sang a song, All We Need Is Love. And so, what kind of love do you need? There is eros love, and this is where we get our term erotic from. Is that the kind of love that we need? There is a storge love, and this is the familial love. Is that what we need? There is a phileo love, and this is the brotherly love, where we get Philadelphia from. Is that what we need? Or is there agape love? And this is the love of God. Now, what's interesting about agape love, the love of God, is that we may not have really, truly understood it if it wasn't for the Apostle John. The Apostle John, in his epistles, really begins to develop this idea of love. And in our devotional today, she quotes 1 John 4, 7, and 8. It says, Behold, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God, and knoweth God. He that loveth not is not of God, for God is love. You may not even know that scripture, and you know that God is love. And so the other characteristics of God sometimes can be hard to hold together, and there's this tension there because we know intrinsically that God is love. And so this brings us to, how do we define love then? Well, you have got to understand God if you're going to understand love, because God is love. Now, in his gospel, John writes about an account where Jesus goes to Samaria, and he's on the outskirts of town, and he is situated there by a well. And in the middle of the day, a woman comes to him to draw water. And they have this exchange, which is rather interesting because Jews did not speak to Samaritan. And so he's speaking to the Samaritan woman, and they're talking about water and drawing water. And she's saying, how in the world are you going to draw water? Because you do not have anything to draw with, and the well is deep. I love this illustration. Here we have a couple of submergible pumps. A small one, it's a low producing well, and a little bit larger one. And motors are on the bottom, the pumps are on the top, the water enters here, and it goes up. Speaking to a well driller, they have some ways that they can kind of determine where the water is. But for the most part, once they've exhausted those ways, they drill a hole, they stick a pump in there, down in that aquifer, and they begin to draw. Historically, they know that there are aquifers in certain areas that have lots of water. And so they go down there and they draw from. But oftentimes they'll drill wells and there won't be much water. If you go to drill a well and you're looking for unconditional love and acceptance and grace and mercy and fulfillment, and you drill down and you find yourself in an aquifer that is eros, storge, phileo, and you're wanting that kind of water, it's going to be rather troublesome. But when you go to drill and you tap into that agape love, it is absolutely amazing. He says to her, But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. This is astounding. This is what he's saying is, I'm going to give you absolute and utter satisfaction. Why was this so important? one, we all desire it. But specifically for her, she's had multiple husbands. She has looked for love and could not find it. And God's saying, I can give you the love that you want. And it's so interesting is because he tells her that the man that she's living with now is not her husband. The love that God provides is a love that lasts. It's a love with commitment because it's a love with covenant. Absolutely beautiful. And then he says that it would be a well of water springing up into everlasting life. And that's what makes it so beautiful. Is not only is this love that she's going to tap into going to be this aquifer that is never going to run dry, but it will run over. See, she was going out with a pot and she was dipping down in it. It was a limited supply. And he's saying, not with me. There will be no limited supply with me. Over in Romans 5:5 it says, and hope maketh not ashamed, because the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts. This is this idea that it is spilling over. And so the love of God cannot be contained. We're looking at it this morning and it's like it almost can't even be defined, because if you try to define it, then you confine it and you rein it into this little tiny thing. If God is love, then you realize that love that comes from God is immense. And so it's not boxed in, nor is there a short supply. So maybe those guys from the 60s were right. Maybe all we need is love. But maybe what we really need is the love of God. If you're a child of God and you have the love of God, realize that that love needs to be shed abroad and it needs to be spilt out through all of mankind today. Our world is hungering for this. It is real, and I tell you what is fulfilling. Thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you.